Hey everyone, my name is Shanice and welcome back to my channel. Today I am picking up a series that I haven't filmed in a very long time. It's my recommending books based off Beatles albums series. I've already done 4 albums, and so today I will be recommending books based off the Beatles' 5th album called Help. This album came out on August 6th, 1965. It is technically a soundtrack album because there was an accompanying film also called Help that came out around the same time. It features 14 songs. About half of them were featured in that film that I just mentioned. 2 songs were written by George Harrison, also sung by George Harrison. It features 2 cover songs, and the rest of the songs were sung by and written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. This album also features apparently the most covered song ever. I'm not sure how they come up with that statistic, but that song is Yesterday, as I'm sure you already know. The album noticeably also features strings. It features more Baroque elements, some keyboards and acoustic guitar. It has its unique sound. And also this album was nominated for Album of the Year in 1966 at the Grammys. And also another apparent statistic is that it was the first rock album to ever be nominated for Album of the Year. And also one interesting thing is that in the album cover, you see the band's position in kind of different shapes with their bodies. That spells out help in the flag semaphore alphabet. So what I'm going to do is just go through each of the 14 tracks, and then based on what each track signifies or is about, I will recommend 14 books that I think fit each song very well. Some of these are me reaching a little bit, just to keep things a little bit interesting and not talk about the same books all the time, but you're in luck because I took kind of a half a year hiatus. A lot of these books I haven't ever talked about on this channel. Brace yourselves and let's begin with the first song, which is the titular song, Help. This is an upbeat song, but really it's about John Lennon asking for help in his life. He is going through a very hard time and he's admitting that he's never needed help or asked for help before, but now it's come to the point where he just needs somebody. So for this song, I am going to recommend Penance by Eliza Clark. This book came out last year. I loved Eliza Clark's boy parts, so I of course knew I had to read this one. This is basically about, it's written as a pseudo true crime nonfiction book. Written by the author of said true crime nonfiction book, and he has basically compiled a bunch of research on this one crime that happened, and so this author is claiming that this is the first time that the truth about this crime is ever going to be published. He is the one who has uncovered it all, and so he researches this crime that happened in a fictional town called Crow in the Sea, where a 16-year-old girl was set on fire, was tortured, set on fire, and died later on because of her wounds. And so what Eliza Clark gives us is an exploration and a commentary on this new obsession with true crime, with the nature of truth, and how hard it is to ever come to one side of the story, because everybody has their reasons, everybody has their circumstances, and the way that she lays this story out, it really analyzes this author of this fake nonfiction book, how much of his work is actually true, how ethical some of his practices were, is a lot of this fabricated, and also looks at in the perspectives of all of the accused, and also the victim. You learn about all of their backgrounds, all of their stories, and you start realizing that, not everyone is as guilty or as innocent as they seem. But it also, in turn, takes a look at audiences of true crime and how healthy it is to be obsessed with like serial killers and listen to these podcasts where the hosts are essentially victim blaming and, you know, sexualizing victims and all of that. It's a very well-rounded look at true crime. And how I think it fits with the song is that basically everybody needs help and everyone is in their own way crying out for help, maybe in ways that aren't even obvious. And it kind of boils down to, you know, hurt people hurt people. So in the same way that maybe we channel our desperation into different ways that may not seem obvious on the outside, I also think that this song sounds really cheery on the outside, but really it's begging disguised as upbeat music. So yes, for help, track number 1, I recommend Penance by Eliza Clark. Track number 2 is called The Night Before, and it is sung by and written by Paul McCartney. This one takes a look back at the night before the narrator was abandoned by their lover, and it's this narrator wondering what happened, what they did wrong, questioning, you know, if anything that happened in the relationship was sincere, because the disappearance kind of came out of nowhere. So there are lots of doubts that the narrator is expressing. And so for this song, I am recommending The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And I did mention this in my favorites of 2023 video, but I didn't talk about it all that much. This is a whirlwind of a story. It mixes a murder mystery, a whodunit, with time travel. That's the easiest way that you can boil it down. But essentially, there is a main character. He wakes up in the middle of the night, kind of in the woods, and he hears a woman screaming for help. And from this inciting incident, you slowly learn that he is in some sort of game where he has to repeat the same day 8 times to solve a mystery. And until he solves that mystery, he has to go back and repeat the same day in the body of somebody else. Yeah, that's all that I really want to say. But how this fits into The Night Before, you have the obvious, you know, mentally going back to a previous day to kind of relive events to see what went wrong. The main character, if you can say there's a main character here, he constantly has to relive the same story, the same events in different perspectives. And whenever, you know, he messes up and doesn't solve a crime, he has to wake up in somebody else's body and basically look back, hopefully remember what he didn't catch in a previous incarnation, to then try to solve it in his current incarnation. So it's a little convoluted, but it does make sense. And along the way, he does meet someone that he develops a close relationship with, in this weird time travel plot. And as things progress, he starts questioning if he should believe that person, if anybody here is reliable. Everybody there is really just tricking him to then succeed in their own game. So yeah, it's such a fun book. I had a blast. I typically don't read those sort of whodunit books, but this was fun and really well written, really funny, and I highly recommend the audiobook too. It was just a phenomenal page turner. Highly recommend. Next up, track number 3 was written and sung by John Lennon, and it's called You Got to Hide Your Love Away. For this song, which is, I mean, it has a lot of different interpretations, but you can say it's John Lennon talking about his struggle with his private life and his fame, how he wants to keep his love life and his, you know, the people that he loves close and to himself. It's his little secret, and he feels like he has to protect it from the world, which can be a dangerous, toxic place for him. And this is definitely Bob Dylan-esque. his vocal delivery has that sort of random burst of energy and like talkative nature to it. So for this track, I am going to recommend Poor Things by Aleister Gray, a book that I read a little bit before the movie came out, which I love. I'm thinking of making my favorite films of 2023 video soon, sooner rather than later, because January is about to end. But I did enjoy this book. I'm sure you guys know what it is already, but it essentially is about this scientist. He liked to experiment and take a lot of risks in his work. He found a way to take the brain of a baby, put it into the dead body of an adult woman, and essentially bring her back to life. And the story is separated into a first part, which is narrated and written by the Dr. Archibald McCandless, or McCandless. I think it's actually supposed to be McCandless because there's a line in the book that says that, but the movie just goes with McCandless. That is narrated from his perspective, how he sees the life of Bella Baxter, who is the woman that they bring to life. And then the other half, or not even half, but the other part of the book is from Bella's perspective. If you've seen the movie is really just the first part and doesn't mention the second part. But that part is there and is very important because it makes you rethink everything from the first part. So this song and this book go together because a lot of the time Bella has to be a secret from the outside world. She is obviously an experiment and a very unethical one. Archibald and also Godfrey, who is the scientist who is just brilliantly nicknamed God, which is, you know, if you've ever read Frankenstein, which this story is kind of a play on, and you know how much Frankenstein discusses God and the purpose of God and good and evil, like, it's a brilliant way to invoke the original source, Frankenstein, in this source by having Godfrey be nicknamed God. I think it's fantastic. But both God and McCandless, they just work really hard to kind of keep Bella a little bit of a prisoner, and in this twisted way have to hide her from society. And McCandless does start falling in love with Bella, which complicates matters. But I really do recommend this book. It is twisted, super funny, very poignant and interesting book to compare to the film. But I will talk about that in a later video. Yeah, but Poor Things by Aleister Gray, I think matches with You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Track number 4 is one of the 2 songs written and sung by George Harrison. It's called I Need You, and this is basically about the narrator telling a girl that he loves her so much that he needs her all the time. And so for this song, I've paired it with 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. What a complicated book. It has to be one of the weirdest books I've ever read. My first Murakami, which was really a way to start his bibliography, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars, I believe. It's so hard to describe, but in essence, there is a young woman named Aomame who is in a taxi one day, is kind of stopped in the highway. She starts walking off the highway, going down the stairs, and all of a sudden she seems to be in a parallel universe, which she names 1Q84, Q being for question because she's also confused. This parallel world is recognizable for its double moons in the sky, so if you see 2 moons, you know you're in 1Q84. If you see 1 moon, you're in the normal, regular universe. Alongside this story is the story of Tengo. He's this mathematician, this professor, who was asked to ghostwrite a book that was originally written by, oh god, I want to say she's 13, but this very young girl. The manuscript that she has is kind of nonsensical, this story about little people taking over the world and just some really abstract, surreal ideas that he then needs to decide whether or not he's going to ghostwrite into maybe more cohesive form and publishable form. And so these two, Aomame and Tengo, meet at some point. That's all I'm gonna say. Their stories intertwine at some point, and they do so in a very powerful and lovely way. I'm not gonna say any more than that. All you have to know is that the song matches the intensity of their connection. Track number 5 is called Another Girl and is sung by and written by Paul McCartney. This one is about a guy who cheats and finds another girl. He is admitting that he was unhappy in the previous relationship but has found someone loyal who will always be his friend. I mean, that's what they always say. And surprisingly, Lennon sings the higher harmony, which is not usually the case. Paul is usually the tenor in the duo, but Lennon takes the higher harmony. And so for this, I am recommending I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. Also a weird book. Very much a commentary on modern social media. I mean, obviously modern. Social media is modern. And it is about a woman who has a boyfriend who is obsessed with a married man who is cheating on his partner with someone else. So the narrator's obsession is with that married man that she is in an affair with, and also the woman that that married man is having an affair with also. So very unhealthy, very toxic. I can see this song being sung by that married man having affairs with every woman he meets. I can also see this song being sung by the narrator. Pretty much anyone who disillusions themselves with the idea that, you know, cheating is justified because the other relationship was bad and this new one is, you know, the true relationship, the true love that is going to be loyal and forever and enduring when usually it's not. So all of the crazy cheaters in this book deserve this anthem. Track number 6 is called You're Going to Lose That Girl, which was sung and written by John Lennon. And this one I am pairing with O Caledonia by Elspeth Barker. And I'm just going to read you the first line of the novel. This is what it is. Janet lies murdered beneath the castle stairs, attired in her mother's black lace wedding dress, lamented only by her pet jackdaw. So the book essentially reveals what happened to this young girl who was found murdered. She was very precocious, very unique. People called her weird. People made fun of her. People bullied her. And in a way, you know, the song is kind of a cautionary tale of what happens when you don't treat people right. You can lose somebody in terms of relationships, but you can also literally lose them because the struggles they are facing become so much that people decide to end it for them. Very gothic novella. I just found it kind of randomly. Love the cover. I think if you like spooky Scottish castles, that kind of vibe, this book should be at the top of your list. Next up is one of my favorites. It's called Ticket to Ride, sung by and written by John Lennon. This one also has multiple interpretations. It sort of describes a woman who is set free, is kind of leaving a relationship to think about herself and to find her own independence. She doesn't really care what her partner thinks. She's just doing it for her own well-being, I guess. So with this song, I am pairing with Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. It is similar to Penance and also Poor Things, kind of a metafiction. It's a book about a fictional writer writing a book. And the book that we have in our hands is that fictional book that the fictional writer ends up writing. So in this case, it is the wife of X, who was, you know, a fictional iconoclastic artist and writer, and performer. She had this very almost bohemian kind of lifestyle. She was always in the art scene, the art elite, the literary elite, the artistic elite. That was her world. And one day she dies, and so her widow decides to write a biography of this woman that she loved. So the book that we get is that widow's discovery of who her wife really was. And I don't want to reveal all that much about this. I think it's better to go in not knowing much of anything. But Ticket to Ride and that idea of just almost creating a new persona or cutting off people from your life to just start anew definitely fits in. And just like the song has multiple interpretations, I think the book itself also can be read in so many ways. Next up we have our, I guess, required Ringo Starr sung track. This one is a cover song. It's called Act Naturally, originally written by Vonnie Morrison and John Bright Russell. This is a very fun and comedic song. Pearl definitely could use this as her anthem. It's kind of a scammer's anthem. Finding out how your weakness can be used as your moneymaker. The singer here is really sad that he's a bad singer and a bad performer, but he thinks maybe I can make some money off of being a bad singer and a bad performer, which, you know, if you listen to the radio, you can tell a lot of people follow that kind of work ethic. You know, he realizes if he can make money like this, he doesn't have to train, he doesn't have to work hard. He's kind of foolish and kind of naive, so I wouldn't give him all that credit of being like super smart about coming up with this plan. But for this fun kind of rompy song, I am going to pick the book Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. I also read this one a little bit before the film. If you don't know, this is a true story. It is a work of nonfiction. It is about the murders of several Osage Nation members during a time when Osage Nation was like the richest territory in the United States, which, you know, certain people couldn't stand, and so they had to kill off a bunch of the Osage Nation people. The story centers around one family member. Her name is Molly. Her sisters have been the victims of these murders, and when they've come one by one, and not just her sisters but other family members, and she knows something is up. You know, she needs the authorities to figure out what's going on, because it's clear that somebody or some people are trying to kill off her entire family. Local authorities didn't have that much power at the time. This happened at the time when the FBI was starting, and so then the FBI got involved in this, and I think this was maybe the FBI's like first real case. So the book really does follow mainly through Molly's perspective. It does branch off a little bit and look at the main FBI investigator and what he researched and uncovered, but it is grisly and gruesome. There's this man in the book. His name is Ernest, and he is Molly's husband. All I'm gonna say is I can see the Martin Scorsese version of this man singing this song. The movie adaptation takes a very unique look at this nonfiction book, and Ernest is like this complete idiot who is like, you know, trying to come up with a murder plan, but he's just kind of dumb, but he's willing to follow along. He just doesn't have all that much up here, you know? And so that version of Ernest, I can definitely see him writing a song like this, believing in a song like this. Just someone who takes advantage of people, doesn't really have much yearning to build a craft, to just make money. And yeah, I can see a guy like Ernest having this song for him. So Act Naturally, I'm recommending Killers of the Flower Moon. Track number 9 is called It's Only Love, and it was sung and written by John Lennon. This song is maybe the most traditionally ballady on the album, and that melodrama, that, you know, earnest depiction of romance and love, I think fits really well with the book that I'm recommending, which is The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Here I'm taking mainly a look at Mishkin, who is the main character here. He inherits a lot of money. He's kind of a simple, very innocent character. It's Dostoevsky's exploration of how to put kind of a simple, good-hearted person in cruel society and seeing how society tries to destroy that good, simple person. So Mishkin does eventually fall in love with this character named Aglaya, and I think that earnest, sincere love, I think, could be reflected in Mishkin and Aglaya and their arc in this book. Track number 10 is called You Like Me Too Much. This is the second of the 2 songs written by and sung by George Harrison. This is about a couple that's kind of obsessed with each other. The singer is claiming that they're never going to break up because they like each other too much. It just sounds like it's verging on dangerous a little bit, but there's also maybe a threat to physically force the other person to come back if they even try to break up. Yeah. So I am recommending YN by Esther Yee. I also mentioned this book in my favorites of 2023 video. Gorgeously written. This is about a woman's obsession with a K-pop band's lead singer who goes missing, and she travels to South Korea to try to find him. I think if you ask that main character if there's a relationship between her and the lead singer, she would say yes, and that he does sincerely love her and knows that she exists. I think the obsession and passion at the heart of both the novel and the song fit perfectly together. The next track is called Tell Me What You See, sung by and written by Paul McCartney, and for this one, this very therapeutic song of the man in the relationship, or the person in the relationship, asking the other person to open up with them and to be honest. It seems like they're working on communication and trying to better themselves. I feel like that is perfect for the novel Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. There are actual scenes in this book where the main character sits down with her wife and tries to look into her eyes and read her and see what is, bubbling underneath the surface, because her wife is just not opening up with her. She seems kind of distant. So I think that couple in the novel is also kind of working on bettering their communication skills, just as the couple is in the song. Next up is one of my favorite songs on the album, one of my favorite songs ever. I'm actually learning it on guitar. It's called I've Just Seen a Face. It so perfectly captures the all of a sudden feeling of just seeing someone and having some sort of connection with them immediately. It's like that love at first sight kind of feeling. And I think it's beautifully depicted in how the opening is like this acoustic, tender kind of guitar moment, and all of a sudden it just turns into this upbeat song, and it almost reflects a musician just playing along, seeing someone, and then all of a sudden bursting into a different kind of song that matches the intensity of the moment. And even the way Paul McCartney sings it, it's like he's not taking a breath. It's beautiful. I love this song so much. So for this one, I am going to pick Rouge by Mona Awad. I will be honest, I did give this 1 star. Though I didn't personally love this book, I think it does kind of match the intensity of the song. So this is from the perspective of a young woman whose mother mysteriously dies, and she tries to uncover why she dies and what groups, what sort of cultish groups that her mother was part of, that focuses so much on beauty. She tries to infiltrate those and see what really happened to her mom. So it's kind of a funny take on I've Just Seen a Face. If you've read this book, you know what I mean. But yeah, this book tries to unpack the beauty industry, the obsession with like skincare routines and facial makeup products, and having like very Botoxed, fresh looking, young, wrinkle-free faces and skin. It definitely unpacks all of that. not really a book for me, but it will be a book for someone, and I think it matches the song. So track number 13 is the oh so famous Yesterday, written and sung by Paul McCartney. This is a very nostalgic look at a relationship that ended. The singer is just so distraught and so unsure as to why it ended, and he's reflecting on the beauty of yesterday before all of the breakup happened and how life seems so good, and now in the present after the breakup it just seems like an eternity ago. So with this kind of gut punch of truth, I am picking Memorial by Brian Washington. Another favorite from 2023. This is about a guy named Benson who lives in Houston and his boyfriend Mike. Mike is a chef and he recently finds out of his father's illness, and he decides to go to Japan to see his father in what appear to be his last days. Meanwhile, Benson is stuck in Houston with Mike's mother, who he doesn't really know that well, but now is forced to just stay with her in this very awkward but very funny and sincere relationship. And so ultimately you explore grief, ultimately you explore the limits of a relationship, and it's such a sad book. Brian Washington uses such precise language, sparse sentences that feel almost too short, like they leave a lot out, but you realize the negative space is kind of part of the impact. It's very intentional. I think it's a beautiful book, a beautiful song, and I so recommend everything by Brian Washington. Please go pick something up by him. He's incredible. And lastly, track 14 is called Dizzy Miss Lizzy. It is another cover, this time written by Larry Williams, and it's sung by John Lennon. Not the most, profound song on the album. Basically, it's about a guy who really, really likes this girl named Lizzy. He's obsessed with her, he loves her, yada yada. Very fun, very danceable. I had a bit of a hard time finding a book because I wanted to find one where the main character's name is Lizzy or Elizabeth or something. I could have done the obvious, Pride and Prejudice, but I'm not going to. So I'm reaching for this one, but it's an excuse to talk about The Four Humors by Mina Seçkin, about a Turkish-American woman goes to visit her family in Turkey for a summer. She's supposed to be studying for the MCAT, but is not, and she's there with her white American boyfriend who is very interested in Turkish politics and is like learning Turkish and starting to speak Turkish better than she. And so while she's there, she's having trouble dealing with her father's death, visiting his grave, and just reconciling all of that. Her kind of tick and her way to avoid dealing with that is by kind of self-diagnosing with Elizabethan Four Humors methods, which were blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Apparently any medical disease you had was, able to be slotted into one of these four groups. If you had headache, that meant you had too much yellow bile in your system and therefore you needed X, Y, and Z. Not very accurate, which is kind of the irony of this medical student relying on such ancient methods to cure modern diseases. It is what it is. People deal with their grief in various ways. But yeah, it was a really sharp book. Lots of interspersed paragraphs of Turkish history, lots of new things that I learned when reading this, and if you like The Idiot by Elif Batuman, I think there are elements of this that you would really like as well. Very academic, intelligent main character. Yes, they are both of, a Turkish background, but that's not really why I think they're both similar. I think they have a similar sense of humor. I really like this book, so do recommend this. For the very last song, Dizzy Miss Lizzy, I reached, but it works. And that is it for this video. I hope some of the titles that I mentioned, pique your interest and you pick them up. If not, then maybe now you want to listen to this album. It's a great album. Not my favorite Beatles album so far, but still great. So, you know, stay tuned for part 6 of the series coming in maybe a month or two. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next time. Bye!